Dr. Fareeha Zafar, Director, Society for the Advancement of Education. Thank you, Dr. Saiba. You spared few minutes from your busy schedule. We will talk about the girls' education later, but now please tell about the Society for the Advancement of Higher Education. How and why was it established?
Okay, the Society for the Advancement of Education, which we normally call SAHI, and you will notice that it is the acronym is SAHE. So initially it began as a Society for the Advancement of Higher Education. But after we had worked for about almost 10 years, they set up this organization in 1982. And it was set up during the period of General Ziaul Haq, when we felt that a forum was needed for discussion on issues which was not available generally, as well as in public sector institutions in particular. At that time, many of us were teaching at universities, so it was set up by a group of individuals who were concerned about education, the quality of education, and who in fact were mainly educationists as well as some other concerned citizens. And the idea was to provide a forum for discussion as well as to try and create alternatives, to provide alternatives for people in education, to show them that other things were possible away from the required curriculum, that we needed to broaden the curriculum, that we needed to broaden the approach to education and to learning, to try and produce an enlightened citizenry, and to work for mainstream Pakistani children. So we were looking at mostly the products of public sector institutions. We were not looking at the elite private sector institutions. And of course both girls and boys. So for about 10 years, until 1989 in fact, for about 8 years, our focus was on higher education, and we worked with boys and girls from colleges, from universities. We offered several courses on different perspectives in education. For example, we talked about identity issues, we talked about colonialism, we talked about apartheid, we talked about gender issues, we talked about human rights, environmental issues, and this is way back in the 1980s, when as yet nobody else was talking about them. So we are one of the oldest NGOs in education. Then in 1989, I just want to briefly add, we decided to go across the country to all provinces and to look at what is the problem with education, where are the issues emerging, what do people think, what does the community think, what do people want. And that was an eye-opener for us. And from then we made a shift in a sense and started focusing on primary education, but not excluding higher education, but our focus did shift. And we made a series of programs for television, which was called Girengi Ye Diwarein, and it raised many of the issues which we still talk about. Issues like child labor, issues like why parents send their children to school and then children drop out, why girls are not educated, or if they are educated, they are pulled out of school whenever it is the parents want to. The cultural dimension, the growth of the non-formal sector. Why is it that people who were educated were not finding jobs, whereas children who were not educated were working in shops, in tea shops, as mechanics and learning on the job? The whole issue of unemployment and violence.
Labor as well.
Yes, we have done some researches. In fact, we conducted a research in the early 90s on the schools run by the Bonded Labour Federation, which were called Apna schools across the country, all 4 provinces, in fact even the northern areas. So we were looking at issues at all levels, because we feel education we have to look at holistically. You cannot ignore issues of poverty, of gender, of labor. The economics are very important. What do parents want? What do children want? what is happening in the school, what kind of education is being given, what is the quality of education. I think I'd like to impress that our focus is on quality, which means what are the learning outcomes, what are the skills that children leave with when they have either completed primary or middle education or lower secondary education.
What is the Foundation's long-term vision and what activities does it carry out to achieve its goals?
Okay. We are an evolving institution, so our activities keep changing to some extent depending on what we feel is the need, and if other organizations begin to do similar work because of our advocacy efforts, then we also move into different areas. But our programs over the last, since 1990 and till let's say 2010, the last 20 years almost, our focus has been primarily on training teachers, because during the 90s many non-formal schools were set up without any training of teachers. All NGOs went into education and no training was available. So throughout Pakistan we provided training in multi-grade, subject-based training, pedagogy for teachers as well as for NGOs and community workers as to how to run education programs and how to work at the community level. It's a holistic approach, yes. And also on gender. We included gender. For us, including gender into all our programs, that is our approach. Although at the end of the 90s, we set up a separate girls' education program. So we have had up to 200 girls' community schools in southern Punjab, in 3 districts which are high poverty, high illiteracy, low literacy districts, and at least 9 batches of girls have completed primary up till now from those communities. This program is based partially on the BRAC model in Bangladesh, in that you take a group of 30 children, you take a local girl who is either middle pass or matriculate, you hire her as a teacher and then we train her. And we give her at least 2 to 3 trainings a year, and when the children move into the next grade, the teacher moves up with them to the next grade. So it is not multi-grade, but the teacher, it's a single teacher school in that sense. And so each teacher by the end of 5 years has been subjected to between 10 to 15 trainings, and the trainings are based on the textbooks that we teach, that we use. Initially we were using the Punjab textbook board textbooks, then we switched to the Oxford University Press books because we found that they were easier, concepts were explained in a better way. Oxford University Press was very encouraging to us. They allowed us to translate the books into Urdu before they themselves started translating them, and they specially then published the books for our girls. So we have educated more than, I would say, 6,000 to 8,000 girls in these 3 districts, and the schools are set up by the community. So the community provides the space. We provide
the collaboration.
It's collaboration. Yes. There is a village education committee, males, a women's village education committee which looks after the school, which ensures the teacher is there. We are responsible for providing all material inputs. In this we have been supported by NOVIB, which is the Netherlands Development Cooperation Agency. Now it has merged with Oxfam, so it is Oxfam NOVIB. But we have also had some individuals contributing to this program. This has been a major program of SAHI. So teachers training, the community-based schools program, and thirdly, research and advocacy, what we call evidence-based advocacy, which means that when we talk to the government or we project a point of view, it is based on evidence from the field and on research that we do. And now we are moving more towards research and advocacy. We conduct evaluations of government programs.
Yes. If we talk about research, what kind of research, if you want to explain our readers and our viewers?
Okay, the kind of research that we do, it has emerged to a great extent from our schools program. That what are the issues emerging at the level of the field? So we do research in gender issues, We have been asked by several development partners such as the World Bank, SIDA, UNESCO, UNICEF, DFID, all international organizations to conduct research, and it is primarily in the areas of gender. It is in the area of community involvement, community participation, different trainings given to school management committees, for example. Is that successful? Is that not successful? We have done research on the social action program and the gender component of that program. We have developed the research component of a project funded by DFID in Faisalabad, in which the entire research component was developed by us, in which we conducted baseline surveys to look at the quality of education. We gave tests to students in Kachi 1 and 2 in grade 8 to see what their level was, what did they know, and that survey and the results of that survey were then linked to the materials that were being developed for training the teachers under the project. The project was actually with the government schools, but various people were drawn in by DFID